Wabash Carnegie Public Library Oral History Program, interviewing Wayne Adams, Wabash, Indiana, at the Honeywell plant, Wednesday, August 14th, 1974. Wayne, the first question I want to ask you, and you can just give me all the information and roll it all into one, is relative to your background, your mother's maiden name, your father's full name, and where you were born.
My mother's name is Faye M. Patten. Father's name is Ori W. Adams. I was born in Huntington in 1913, September the 22nd.
Now tell me about your early education, grade school and high school and so forth.
I started in kindergarten, State Street School, and I attended Lincoln School in Huntington, and Huntington Township School, and the Roanoke Grade School, and I finished my schooling in Huntington High School. I had 2 years high school.
And what did you do right after high school then? What year would that have been?
You got me there, George. I got to stop thinking back a little bit. Well,
was it before World War II?
Oh yes, it was 19 about 1929, George.
1929.
1929,
Yeah.
yes.
And you just left school then at the end of your sophomore year?
Yes.
Yeah. What was the reason for that?
Well, the Depression was coming on, and I had to help my family. I had 2 sisters and a brother and a stepsister, and of course that meant more income for the family. And like I say, it was starting of the Depression. That's when we began to feel a
First pinch.
Yeah, I'll say.
What did you do then immediately after you left high school?
I worked at Caswell Runyon during the summer, and later on that fall, they laid off a bunch of fellows, and of course I was a new employee and was laid off. And I'd be called back and work maybe a few days, and then laid off a few days, and back then that's the way it was. And you did about anything you could find to do.
Yeah. No one will believe us now, but how much money did you earn a day in those days?
At that time I was making 27.5 cents an hour.
Yeah. And 8-hour day?
8 and 9 when they were rushed, and sometimes on Saturday morning. And
well, how long did you stay then at this Caswell Runyon, and what happened roughly?
I worked for Caswell Runyon until about 1935, I think it was. 1935.
And what happened then?
Well, I went to work at the Asbestos Manufacturing Company.
In Huntington?
In Huntington, yes.
Doing what?
Well, I started out in punch press department, and I worked on punch presses and forming presses, and on Natco machines there was drill presses, multiple drill press work.
And then what was your work career then up until the time you went with Honeywell?
I developed poisoning from the material I was working in, and I lost almost a year's work. Mm-hmm. Then I went to work for the Erie Railroad. I worked on maintenance away in the Erie Railroad for about 2 months and a half till cold weather, and then I worked for the school board in Huntington.
Mm-hmm. This was all during the Depression.
This is this leads up to 1940. This is 1940, in the fall of 1940.
Right.
And at that time, I played in a small band, and I heard about Honeywell's hiring down here. Mm-hmm. And I came down here in January of 1941. Mm-hmm. Put my application in. I was called in the next week for an interview with Mr. Worth.
Mm-hmm. But no one had told you about the job? In other words, you had just heard that they were hiring, and you came down and put an application in?
Yes. And they were hiring machine men, and I'd had drill press experience, and they were needing drill operators, drill press operators, and of course I had experience in that line of work, and so that led to me coming down here and put my application in.
Yeah. Then you started right away then in early of 1941?
January the 31st, 1941.
Yeah. And what was your first job?
I worked for Gene Ranstead on drill presses. Gene and, of course, Mully was our foreman at that time, and Stu Martin. Started on drill presses.
You remember how much you made? What was your starting wage?
45 cents an hour.
Yeah. Was there any fringe benefits back in those days, Wayne? I'm not familiar with 41. Did you have hospitalization or paid vacation?
No, I think that summer, I think of 41 the summer, the first vacation that I had, and back then it was paid vacation, yes. They had a few days. I don't just remember what it was, George.
Yeah.
How many?
They were starting on, obviously, war production was coming on, and you were working on the drill press, and what were you working on specifically?
It was material for government material, like you say, war.
Yeah. Now, this was production?
Production, yes.
Yeah. And how long then did you stay with Gene on the press?
Well, I worked a few weeks on days, and I knew that I'd have to go on nights, and I went on the third trick. And then I worked for Stu Martin, and I was, later, they put me on the screw machine. And I worked on the screw machine for a while, and our setup man went into service, and John Parrott, and I took over his job to set up under Stu Martin.
And where was the factory located?
On Canal Street, corner of Canal and...
Where Carroll is?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Where the plane dealer is now.
Where the plane dealer is.
Was Mr. Honeywell active in those days, Wayne?
You bet he was.
Yeah.
Very much so.
What do you remember?
Well, sometime later, I was on the entertainment committee for our Christmas party. And I thought it'd be a good idea for Mr. Honeywell to bring us up to date on his experiences and how he got started into the Honeywell work. I asked for an interview with Mr. Honeywell.
Brave young man.
Yeah, you bet. And he sent word for me to come up his office right after lunch. I went up there and we sat and talked for, I imagine, an hour and a half, and we really had a wonderful visit, and I learned a lot of some of the hardships that Mr. Honeywell went through, and some of the things that he, like I say, the hardships and money squeeze and all that he went through.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the specific stories that he told you that day?
No, George, not offhand. I'd have to think back. It's been a long time ago.
Yeah. And did he agree to come and to talk to the group then?
Yes.
Yeah.
He agreed, and he said sure, he would be glad to. And we had our Christmas party in the Memorial Building, and he gave us a wonderful speech on his what would you say?
Start in the business.
Start in the development of the Honeywell plant in Wabash.
Yeah.
Of course, prior to this time, I'd helped on the Honeywell Memorial Building down there, helped on Saturdays and evenings.
Yeah. What were you doing there?
A little bit of everything. I helped on insulating the ductwork. Darrell Hamilton and I, and there was a few other fellows, and we would work in the evenings and on Saturday.
And you'd be paid extra for your
Yes.
extra for your work. Yeah. Do you remember Mr. Honeywell coming through the plant and chatting
Yes.
with the?
Another thing, I think Mr. Honeywell probably back then could walk down through the plant and call everybody by their first name, and which surprised me. He'd holler your name out, you know, just like he'd worked with you all the time, you know.
Did you, going back to your work career now, and you got onto the screw machine, did you stay on that, or?
Well, I was, like I say, I went into setup on screw machines and close the war. Then we were assigned a machine.
Mm-hmm.
The setup man was assigned a machine. We were set up in supervision. And you would pull a job from a peg in the tool crib, and that was your baby to run that job out, make your setup, and get it cleared through inspection and run the job. And this was going back to your Honeywell line of products. This was the close of the war, after the war was over. Mm-hmm. And at that time, you had your choice. You could stay with Honeywell or leave. You know, a lot of them left at that time.
For what reason?
Oh, I suppose they want to get out and different jobs, and a lot of them went different places, different factories. And
yeah. Then what happened to your career? Work career?
They brought in the Honeywell diffusion register line.
Mm-hmm. And what was that?
They were our, they were discharge and intake registers, mm-hmm. wall-mounted registers. And Ben Simmons was over this line, and Doc Leland asked me if I would help Ben. They were setting up the line, and there was mostly women working on the line. And of course, Ben was busy, and would I help for a while on register line? And I went back and worked with Ben for a while. And you know, it's a funny thing, George, I just never really got back to machine work again, that's all. Uh-huh. Then I was made Ben's assistant in that line of work, a supervisor over the D522 to 520 line, uh-huh. which is your registers.
Do you remember when Ben went to Lebanon? Do you remember when that happened? Or?
Yes.
Saudi Arabia. He went to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I remember when Ben went to Arabia, but I can't just remember when it was, George. You know, I get thinking about, I know Mr. Worth one time said that Ben's career started, of course, he was in the sheet metal, mm-hmm. and prior to that time he'd been on screw machines. Uh-huh. And he went over there one night and come in one night, and Ben was studying something on the slide rule. And of course, Mr. Worth wondered right away what a guy on a machine like that was doing, reading the slide rule. And I guess that's what Mr. Worth said. He said right then he knew he had a man there that shouldn't be on that job. Yeah. And he was a wonderful person on that line. If he found out that you were capable of doing more than you were doing, he was always behind you to put you right ahead.
Yeah, that was Moe's work.
Yeah.
Well, then you sort of just slipped into management, and
yes.
Yeah. Did you go on head office payroll then and off hourly? Or?
No, I was still on hourly payroll, yeah. And of course I was paid for any overtime that I did. Mm-hmm. We moved out of the Slimmer building over on Huntington Street, where the old 513 building is there, mm-hmm. on Huntington Street, right off of Market. Right. And I had the register department over there for, George, I don't know, it must have been 2 or 3 years, something like that, and it was run, Mr. Worth at the time, run it like it's your own factory. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I had mostly women. I think I had maybe 3 or 4 fellows work for me, and the rest of them was women. They did the assembling. Mm-hmm. They'd bring the raw parts in. We had to grease them and bonderize them, of course, and weld them, spot weld them, and grease them and bonderize them, paint them, assemble them, adjust them, box them, ready to go out.
Mm-hmm. Did you welcome this responsibility?
I'll say I did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
And then how long did this operation last?
George, I can't say for sure. I'd have to look up, but it seemed to me like it was around about 3 years, I guess. And then we moved out. This operation was moved out to Ford plant. And I remember we were in the process of moving down there. We were setting up the bonderizer, and Mr. Honeywell came through with some visitor, and I was out there helping one of the fellows on the bonderizer there, checking the solution or something. I don't remember just what it was, but Mr. Honeywell went through there, and he threw up his hands. He says, "Hi, Wayne, how's things going?" That's something that it kind of always impresses a fellow, you know.
Yeah.
It makes you feel pretty good.
Sure. Did you think that Mr. Honeywell really had this relationship with everyone, that particularly his older employees?
I believe he did. I have never heard anything else.
Yeah.
Like I say, I knew Mr. Honeywell pretty well. I mean, for being just an employee.
Yeah. Well, then the register plant, then they decide to move that, and
Yes.
then you're back in another job again then?
Yes, and I worked for Duke Bridegroom then. I went to work for Duke as supervisor at the Ford plant.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, of course, they were making sights there, and of course we had the D5 522, your register line of work there yet. And they started on relays, and I had some experience along that line. Mm-hmm. Then I went from there. Mr. Ebbinghaus, Jim, asked me to take over shipping. Years, I guess it was. I did all the shipping.
This was after the...
After I left the Ford plant.
Yeah.
I was there about, like I say, I'd have to look those dates up.
Yeah.
I guess I don't remember. About 6-8 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Amos Goki came here, and he took over shipping, and I worked for Amos and in the shipping line. And then
Are you on head office payroll yet, Wayne, or are you still hourly?
still hourly.
Still hourly.
Still hourly,
Yeah.
yeah. And after I started to work for Amos, they put me on salary. Mm-hmm. And Amos took over the shipping, and things were a little slow at the time, and they didn't need all that help in shipping. So he said he had a job for me if I would take it. They wanted me to run the monolith. That's your offset printing.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 years, I did all of Wabash Honeywell's printing. That is offset printing that could be handled on our machines. We had 2 machines.
Yeah.
For 2 years, I did that. I don't remember. I did have a record of how many copies I run through those machines in the 2 years. It was up around 1 million copies that were run through the machine.
Yeah.
We're in the process of changing our route sheets and so forth, and a lot of work.
You know, something strikes me here that's rather odd, is that you just jump from one job to another, and you obviously don't have any problems in catching on to what you're supposed to be doing. Has that ever amazed you?
Well, I never thought of it that way, George. I never give it much thought.
No.
I like to learn new jobs, and I like for things to run smooth. I mean, if I'm on a job, I like to know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, not just doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing probably that.
But you never found that to be hard, or get into a position would be distasteful or aggravating or anything? You slipped from one job to another and didn't seem to bother you at all.
I think everybody more or less resents changes. I mean, but I think it didn't bother me too much, no.
Yeah. Now you talk about Amos Golke coming. That was obviously when the group came here from Freeport.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you notice a change then in personnel, and obviously in personnel they made some changes in personnel, in the employees and so forth, supervisory personnel. But did you notice a change in attitude then in the factory?
Not too much that I recall. I think I think the employees of Honeywell's have always been more or less a satisfied group, and I know I've always felt this way about it, that I had no reason to go somewhere else for other jobs, and there was no strings tying me here if I wanted to change jobs.
Yeah.
I had no desire to go to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like I say, I was satisfied, and I guess that's what life's all about.
Yeah. Did you think when the group came from Freeport, did you feel that the factory would no longer remain, or something would happen?
I think a lot of us was wondering about that, George. We were wondering what was going to happen. Of course, the first thing you hear, well, Honeywell's is moving out. They're getting ready to move out. They said these fellows came in to terminate Wabash operations. I think everybody more or less had that feeling, George.
Did you feel that way too?
Well, no, I didn't think so. I'll tell you why. I think that the people of Wabash would fight to keep Honeywell's there for the sake, memory of Mr. Honeywell. And I think that when you put people under that pressure, that they're going to really dig down and show the people, show the company that they're interested in the company staying here.
Going back to, were you in the company union or what they called it, the company union at the time? Were you a member back in the
in
40s and the late 40s and so forth?
Yes, in fact, I was one of them to help bring the union, our independent union here.
The independent?
Yes, it was the independent union.
Yeah.
And I think, well, of course, I had worked for the CIO.
This was before CIO came in.
Yeah, that was. I worked for Asbestos, and we were one of the first companies in this area to organize under CIO, and that was, like I say, back in well, there you got me again.
The late 30s.
In the late 30s,
Yeah.
That's right, yes, before I came to Honeywell.
Now, we're talking about the independent union as against the international, right?
Yes.
But you did belong to the independent union.
Yes.
And you were active in that group.
Yes, I was an officer in that union for a while, and I was working, like I say, for Ben, and we were starting negotiations for contract, and I was in Mr. what was the conference room, and of course Mr. Worth was there, and after our first meeting I went back across the street. It was over there in the Slimmer building, and Ben came to me and said Mr. Worth wanted to talk to me, and I went over, and of course the first thing I thought, I wonder what I did now.
Yeah.
He asked me to resign my position as in the union. I don't remember what it was anymore.
Yeah.
I don't remember really.
Steward or something.
Something.
Yeah.
It was no, guard or something. I mean,
in the internal.
Yeah.
Works, yeah.
But of course, he said that they were putting me in on the personnel side of it, and they would, if I would accept the job, I couldn't be in the union.
Yeah. So then you had nothing to do with the international coming in then either, because
No,
you were on the other side of the street.
No.
Then. Yeah. Did you think there were a lot of hard feelings when that came, Wayne? Or?
I believe so. Yes. I believe so. I think that most of the people, or a lot of the people I know, would have rather had our independent union. We had practically the same situations you have in your other unions. I mean, they have to recognize it. I mean, the union was recognized, and I think maybe that a lot of them thought, well, that's the way to get big money, and all you got to do is join the other union. And but sometimes I wonder, or of course, who's to know?
Yeah. What were your opinions when they decided to move the factory out here on Bond Street? What were your opinions then?
Well, of course, downtown there was more or less home to me, my second home, you might say. And, of course, I didn't think that we'd ever see a time they would tear the building down there, and move everything out here. And it was kind of a surprise to me that they did it, in as much as they had been in that building so long, you know.
Uh-huh.
And this new part that was built on at the start of the war, the plant between the old, or the new part built on between the old building and the old mill down there.
Yeah.
And of course, I think Mr. Honeywell really thought a lot of that old mill.
Mm-hmm.
He really, that probably brought back a lot of memories, I suppose, his younger days. And I remember when they put the old millstone in the side of the building down there. Of course, I saw a couple bad fires right next to Honeywell's down there. The one, the old coal yard back of it, and one across the street, part of the slimmer building in there. And of course, I was in there helping on that too. Back when the coal yard burned down there, I was all night up on the roof of the hose. I stayed up there all night.
Just to protect the...
Yeah, we were...
Protect
the building was so awfully warm. Of course, it was awfully warm inside the building too. We had, of course, our spray booths vents run out the top of the building, and this paint would catch fire and drop down in the spray booth.
That was Don Bailey.
Oh.
I just did him last week. How about when you did make the move out here? Was everything smooth? And
Yes, I came out here, and right after I came out here, I went into the printing end of it on monolith. And of course, there again, it was learning a new job. And my boy, Doug, was the operator, and he taught me. And he was with me a week. Of course, he knew those machines inside and out. He came here right after high school, and he taught me. And of course, that terminated his job. He knew this too, but of course, he was just a boy, not married, of course, and it kind of, well, a guy kind of wondered, you know, like you say, well, I come along and take my own boy's job, you know. Well, of course, I had to provide for the family, which he could still go on living and be home.
Yeah.
But he taught me the machine. He was with me, I think, a week. I've got it on the calendar. The day he left, he was here a week with me.
Do you keep a calendar of the different jobs you've done?
I've got them somewhere. I'd have to look it up, George. I've got, I saw one of the sheets I had not too long ago in my records. Gave the last day that Doug was with me and starting on the machines. And there again, the first thing that I had to do was learn how the machine operates and what makes it tick. And I would have some trouble with it, but I know I told our serviceman that came in every so often to service the machines, maybe something would break down on it, and I've even made little parts and put on myself.
On the machine.
On the machine.
Yeah, I'll be there. Did all these years that you worked here, did you feel that you were paid well enough, compensated well? Or?
Well,
that's a hard question, I know.
No, I don't think so. I owe everything I have to Honeywell's, my gosh, and I feel this way about it. If I wouldn't have been satisfied, I'd have went somewhere else and got a different job.
Yeah. Let me change the tape here. This is the end of part one.
Not only Wabash, all the surrounding areas, I think about everybody in the world. I don't think you could go anywhere in the world that you couldn't find somebody that knew of Mr. Honeywell.
Yeah.
And a lot of them knew him personally. Many of them.
Did you find him easy to get along with and agreeable, or did you ever see him when he was disagreeable or hard to get along with?
I've often told about the time we were at the main plant downtown there, and we had an honor system on our canteen. It was a long cooler, it had glass front, and had slanting front, and you slide the door open and there was candy and milk, and of course back then it was a different kind of pop. We didn't have coffee machines at that time. But it was an honor system, and it was the min rigs took care of it. And I went out there one day and to get a bottle of milk or something, and I was reaching my pocket for change. Mr. Honeywell came down through there, and he tapped me on the shoulder. He says, reached his pocket. He said, "You want me to loan you a nickel, Wayne?" And I often thought about that.
That he was very human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He asked me if you wouldn't, if I wanted to loan me a nickel.
Yeah. Do you think that the community has recognized Mr. Honeywell's contributions?
You bet. I should say so. Like I say, in so many ways you couldn't name them all.
Yeah. But do you think the community has recognized this?
You bet. I'll say.
Yeah.
Of course, I say your older people, probably your younger people. I think don't really know the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they say, well, this memorial building was erected by Mr. Honeywell, and Honeywell Gardens and all this and that. But I don't think that your younger people realize that one person could be responsible for that many different facets of entertainment and beauty, the country club, and like I say, our memorial building, and they don't realize that it was done for the younger people as much as your older people, for the whole community.
Mm-hmm. In your interest in music over the years, you've had an interest in music over the years.
Yeah, I've been in the band for years.
Yeah. Did Honeywell ever have a musical organization at any time when you were here?
No. One time, John Lotzenheiser worked here, and Darrell Hamilton. Of course, we sang in a quartet along with Orville Urschel, the old tunesmiths.
Mm-hmm.
We were together for, I think, 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a lot of running around singing all over radio and television. And,
But you had no formal Honeywell group?
no.
When did you get married, Wayne?
1934,
34.
December the 15th,
And what was your wife's maiden name?
Deloris Bates.
And she works here at Honeywell also?
She works at Honeywell. She'll have 20 years in the 13th of next month.
And what does she do?
Now she's in shipping. She has been in assembly work, and she worked in the old 828 motors and motor work up at the main plant, and she worked for Don Bailey, and she was kind of a supervisor for Don over the women. And
was this a nice family relationship then with both you and your wife working here?
yes,
Yeah. And worked out well?
certainly,
Yeah.
I'll say.
Yeah. And what do the children do?
You mean now?
Yes, your children.
Well, Doug went to Deals. He's an accountant at Deals. My youngest boy was working at Dataview, and I'm not sure he was talking about going on a railroad job. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen him for, well, right at vacation time, and of course he lives out west of town. And we stay at the lake all summer, and as soon as we were off work, we head for the lake, and he hasn't been up. Well, he was up the lake the other day and left a note that they would be up, but I haven't seen him in about almost a month now.
Yeah.
He's kind of a loner.
Yeah. Would you have liked the kids to work at Honeywell also?
Well, I'll put it this way, George. If they would be satisfied as I have been, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that Doug, of course, now there again, Doug owed his getting his job at Deals to Honeywell.
Mm-hmm.
Our personnel manager at that time, I have to think back now, got him his job, told him to go to Deals, that he had called down at Deals.
Mm-hmm.
It was our personnel manager at that time, and I can't think who it was right now, George. And Doug went down, they had this opening down there, and I suppose through recommendation of Honeywell's, he got his job down there, and that's been 1969 years, I think,
Yeah.
9 years, about 9 years now.
Yeah. Are you getting ready for retirement, Wayne?
Yes, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'll have 34 years in January, and I'll be 61 in September. So you begin to think about it along about that time, and begin to wonder.
Have you made any preparations at all other than the lake cottage?
Not really. Not really. I kind of look at it this way, George. A lot of people worry about what they're going to do in retirement. Well, how do you know if you're even going to be here? So why try to cross the bridges before you get there?
Yeah. Now, you're not worried about money or job or...
No. No, I don't worry about it.
Either you have it or you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. I think that's a good attitude.
I think I read been a long, long time ago, people spend 90% of their time worrying about things that never happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
90% of the worries you have never happen.
As you look back now, would you have changed your life any? And we're going to shut this off in about 2 minutes. Would you have changed anything? Possibly finished high school or gone to college or?
Well, back then I couldn't.
Yeah.
It would have been even. Of course, I wasn't schooling. I wasn't more schooling. Sure. In fact, I was interested in drafting, and I've always been interested in artwork of all kinds. Mm-hmm. And when I was a boy, we lived on Mr. Book's farm. He was president at that time of Caswell Runyon. Mm-hmm. And of course, that was before my mother died. And my mother died in 1927. So this must have been about 1923, along in there, 24. And Mr. Book won me, when I was old enough to get a job, that I would come into Caswell's and take, back then you learned drafting, what they called drafting then, and I would have been working under their head draftsman, and it would be kind of an apprentice course, you know, and I would be working for Caswell's because he knew I was interested in this, and that was one thing that I always wondered about, how things would have been if that would have materialized, you know,
yeah.
if it went the other way.
Yeah.
Of course, I have no regrets. I have absolutely no regrets. I've had a wonderful life with Honeywell's. No, I'm not saying that because you're recording this.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I have no complaints. I have never been laid off a day. I never have been laid off a day.
Yeah.
In Honeywell's in 34, it's going to be 34 years.
That's remarkable.
I've lost some time, but I was never laid off.
Yeah.
They always found something for me to do.
Yeah, I think
So I kept pretty busy.
Yeah. Well.
And I like it that way.
Yeah. I'd say it's a good company, and you've been a good employee. Wayne, I'm going to close this interview, and thanks again.
Thank you, George.
Yeah. George Dingleby.